this particular piece, I'm actually going to go and ink it and sort of color it in one go. I'm going to use just a gray marker to deal with a lot of the detail and a lot of the flat surfaces. I'm going to use an additional gray marker to add some texture. So I'm actually going to lighten a lot of my pencil lines up, so I can erase them again after, but from experience, the lighter my pencil lines are when I try to do this, the better. I'll actually use this technique for a lot of portrait artwork that I do. It usually has a very nice effect. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to actually use the marker to ink and color sort of simultaneously, which I don't know if I recommend. This is something that I've kind of gotten used to. But if you can do it, you can make some really nice effects. So I'm making a couple of decisions here about my lines and the anatomy. Another thing that I often think about when I'm using markers like this is actually layering the color. I might come back to an area a couple times and let it build up. And when that happens, you can do some nice effects, which I think most of the time people don't think about when they're using markers. Another thing I like to do is deal with volumes when I'm using my markers. I think it's a little easier for me personally to use the markers to deal with volumes as opposed to when I'm inking with a black pen. And I think that might just be because when I'm working, I like to have sort of multiple layers of value. I think that's just because of the way that I've been working. There are some very, very good inkers who can do a number of things with just lines. And I think that they can do the sort of things that I do with these layers of color. It's all in the technique and all in the planning, I think. Many of these inkers have so much experience that a lot of it is done without a second thought, which is really impressive. I'm just trying to add in a little bit of texture here. I've got this nice sash built up. Build up his pirate pants. Back to his arms a little bit. Build this back up. Give him some volume to his muscles. Not going for super realistic anatomy here, because I just real quickly penciled this guy before. But I want to kind of make it a little more believable than cartoony. So there's some things I'm going to do to try to add some depth, add some volume. And you can see it in a couple spots where just going over some of the previous marker creates a little bit of depth. Kind of hear these not so greatly placed metal rings on him before. Let's see if I can salvage these a little bit. Got his fist all clenched up here. He's getting ready to do some punching. I haven't talked a lot about the value of anatomy, I think, to this point. I've read that some artists, they never took an anatomy class in their life, and sometimes I think that shows. Other times they're just good enough that, you know, maybe you can't tell. You know, anatomy is really just knowing how something is put together, whether it's a person or an animal. You may not know all the names of all the different muscles, but sometimes it helps to know where they go or what they might look like. This guy was made up with not a lot of reference and more than a little bit of rushed anatomy, but he still generally looks like a person. And I think, especially for beginning artists, you have to try hard to make sure that your shapes, everything, are still recognizable as a person or a cat or a horse or whatever it is that you're working on. And then as you have time to develop and learn where everything goes and how everything fits together, You can work on making your anatomy stronger and your figures better. Just remember that I give this guy some scars on his head. But believable anatomy is very important to your artistic career. The better you get at it, the more fun you'll probably have, and the more people will probably enjoy your work. Here, I'm going to switch up to the other side real quick. Just take some large swaths here. I kind of let these create some patterns as I'm doing it. Trying to create some panels on the way up. It's a nice built-in pattern to the pants. I'll probably revisit those again in a second. Yeah, just a little bit more detail. Just kind of quickly dealing with this guy's feet and toes. Build up just a little bit in the way of some shapes. I'm going to come back to these for a second. Just add a couple lines cross-hatching back. I changed my mind about that part for a second. I'm actually going to come back in. I'm going to erase a little bit. Now, one thing I've learned about these markers is that if there's pencil underneath them, sometimes it won't come out. So that's why I try to usually work lightly with my pencils if I'm going to do this. It should give a nice layered effect with that marker. You can see it's got some natural depth to it. And I think we'll stop right there.